Well, howdy, physics sleuths and inquisitive souls, and welcome again to another lecture of Sermon of Sean. So, a few weeks ago, I received yet another vision from God, I believe. And it's pretty interesting. A lot of it I already pretty much knew, but it just kind of elaborated on, I guess, reasons on why. It's just important if you're trying to understand God and who He is and what He's about and what He's trying to accomplish here with us on our planet. Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Um, this is I don't even know, man. All in all, this is probably like maybe the 10th vision so far in the last 5 years. God has sent me 6 years, so I don't get him that much. It's not like every other day I'm like, I got it. God has spoken to me again. Like, no, bro. These are very rare events, and usually they're kind of traumatic a little bit, to be honest with you. But yeah. So let's break into this a little bit and see if we can't figure out some stuff. So the vision I got was an elaboration onto why God has created humanity the way that He has, which is starting off very imperfect, very, very far from perfect where we're meant to be, and then slowly evolving us naturally through evolution over eons, tens of thousands of years, maybe even millions, man. I can't even say. At this point, I honestly can't tell you if God really did create the universe, or at least the earth, as so many religions say, or if he just kind of came along and he just kind of created us and all of our livestock and all of our fruit and stuff that we use to survive and dominate this planet. I honestly don't even know anymore. All I can tell you is certainly God has created humanity and the world that we use to survive, like all of our fruits and vegetables, all of our livestock. There wasn't no damn cows, bro. There wasn't no damn dairy cows back when saber-toothed tigers were roaming the planet. Because cows are stupid and slow, and they die really easily to predators. And without having something like us to care for them and keep them alive, they're not going to make it, man. Evolution is going to take them out real quick, fast, in a hurry. So if you ever want any proof that God exists, just look at the existence of a cow, man. This stupid animal that really isn't very good for anything except giving us milk and meat. And they kind of suck. I mean, they just do like a water buffalo, maybe in Africa. Yeah, those are kind of mean, and they get stuff done only because they travel in packs of like 100. But it's just crazy. So, anyways, what this vision was that God sent me was basically elaborating on why He had to use evolution to create humanity. Okay, like if He wanted, and first I'm going to prove to you right now that God uses evolution to create things. All right, let's take a look at this. I've already done this into one of my videos years ago, but it's so appropriate here. I can't help but use it again. This is in the Bible, Genesis chapter 1. God's explaining to proto-humans, and the way He can, the way that they'll understand, hopefully, how the earth was created, and blah blah blah. All right, and it says, the earth Then all the animals and everything was made first, right? And then he decided to, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have domain over the fish of the sea and over the fowl, over the whole earth, basically. So here's when God decides, after everything else is made, let's go further. Let's make a demigod. God is a god, and animals are animals. But if you mix the two, if you splice the DNA like God can do, what you get is something that's half animal, half God. And that's what we are. That's what humans are. We're demigods. That's why we're so weird, so different compared to everything else on this planet. Okay? It's pretty crazy when you think about it. So God says, listen, let's make the humanity, right? After our likeness, a nod to DNA, saying we're going to use our DNA. And notice how he says our. God is plural. God is not one entity. God is an alien species acting as one thing to us. Okay? It clearly says right here, our image. God is talking about our image, as in his image. So our image, and Elohim, I believe, is one of the words that it uses in the Bible, which refers to not only God, but the entire everything in his kingdom. All of the things that he made, all the things he's grown, everything is what Elohim is supposed to mean. Everything that's on God's team that's above us, okay? And so Elohim is also plural, meaning, a whole kind of race, basically, is what the Elohim means. And that's one of the interchangeable words for God in many places in the Bible. Something to think about. So, so God created man in his own image with his own DNA. And the image of God created him male and female. He created them. Okay? So God, and Genesis 1:27 has created humans in his own image. Okay? And then God blessed them, blah, 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 and said you can control everything on the planet. And I give you all the herbs and the plants to use as you see fit, and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff I give to you so you can do what you need to do to get stuff done. And then he took a break, right? And it was all finished. And so on the seventh day, after God did all his work, he took a break, right? Now, it's clearly established in the Bible that God made humans on the sixth day, whatever a day is referenced in the life of God, okay? He made humanity on the sixth day. Yet here we are, like 8 verses later, now we're talking about Adam, okay? Man in the Garden of Eden. Now he's making the Garden of Eden and he's making Adam, okay? And Adam is not the first human, but it says he is in the Bible because he's the first Jew. And this, the old, Jewish religion was for the Jews. So when he said it was the first man, it kind of made sense to them, and yeah, they thought he was the first man. They didn't know about everything else because God didn't tell them. But just know this. It's in the Bible, man. God made all of humanity. Then, like 8 verses later, he makes Adam and gives him a soul and breathes a breath into him, okay? And he makes the Garden of Eden, and he makes Eve, to give him a companion so he's not lonely. And then, begins the whole history of the Jews. Okay, the Jews' history, which goes back about 5,000 years, which, fun fact, most every race on this planet, we have archaeological evidence going back tens of thousands of years, but the Jews, it really does appear as though they just magically plopped there so many thousands of years ago, like 4,000 years ago, just out of nowhere. And just like the Bible says. Kind of odd, right? When you understand the context of what's going on, what's being talked about in the Bible, everything makes perfect sense, okay? It only doesn't make sense because you don't understand the context that is going around, okay? From what perspective? So, God created humanity, and then he created Adam and Eve, and 8 verses later, and then the whole thing starts, okay? So, um, now, could God create humans without using evolution? Could he just jump to a finished product that is what he thinks is appropriate or suitable to have super hyper intelligence like he has? Because you got to remember, man, if there's one thing that cannot be tolerated, is to have the intelligence of God, hyper intelligence like we have, and to be an evil thing that wants to use this hyper intelligence to just hurt and maim everything around you. Okay? That's not, God gave you this gift of consciousness, of intelligence. And it's not for you to be an asshole to everyone around you. Okay? That's not the reason why he did that. So, seems kind of very inefficient, right? To have to go through this long evolutionary process that could last 100,000s of years, maybe even millions of years, depending how far back we're talking about when God decided to first make humanity, okay? And what's going on here, okay? So, can God create perfect humans, perfect beings? Yes, he already did that. It's the angels, okay? A lot of the angels, the original angels anyways, are absolutely perfect beings that he created to serve him. But God, he saw them more as an army of slaves, okay? Because he didn't make them to do anything but obey him. They don't really have much choice, okay? Humans, being demigods, have a choice whether to obey God or obey our primal animalistic instinct, otherwise known as sin, as I've made a whole video about a couple months ago, explaining exactly what is sin, what is Satan, what are demons, what is devil, everything. I go into in great detail and explain to you everything, what it is and how to think of it if you want to understand what's going on and what's going to be best for you, okay? Sin, spoiler alert, is just basically our animalistic nature that we have instinctually from our origins of monkeys. We want to fuck, we want to steal, we want to kill, we want to eat, we want to rape. We want to do anything that is satisfying, that triggers these dopamine hits, and we don't care who we hurt in the process. That is an animalistic behavior that God calls sinful. Sin. When you choose your animal side over your godly side. That's what sin is. Okay? That's the definition of it that you will understand. Okay? All these other preachers, when they talk about sin, they don't know what they're talking about, bro. They have no clue. They're like, and the devil will make her. Like there's this imaginary dude hovering over your shoulder that's invisible, that's, poking you with this little trident that makes you sin more. Come on, dude. What are we, children? We're not cavemen anymore. We can handle a little more truth and complexity and reality and how things are. Okay? We're not children anymore. There is no devil except for the one that you have naturally inside your head. And trust me, that is more than enough for the majority of us to be defeated by. I assure you. All right? So, God created angels, and he already has his army of slaves, but he doesn't want that. He wants to go further. He wants to have a legion of allies that will support him and back him because they choose to. Ergo, the creation of humanity. Okay? But to do this, he has to create us from something that is not like a robotic perfect being that he created. Okay? We're living things that have all evolved from monkeys. Okay? It's a fact. Theory of evolution is the most scientifically researched and verifiable theory in all of human history. There is literally a mountain of fossil evidence proving evolution is right. Literally a mountain of fossil evidence. Kind of hard to disprove that. All right? Luckily for us, the Bible kind of talks about it. It's just people don't understand it because it's not the way they want it to be. So, God creates us, right? Because He wants us to be natural and in sync with the
Hunt
environment.
octopus.
All right? And now look at this. This is a good example. All right. Could He make a synthetic perfect being like angels to do His bidding? Yes. But it's kind of like this. All right. We created this synthetic octopus to go and spy on other octopuses, to learn about them, to see what's going on there. But see, and here it is, little synthetic fake coconut octopus that we made to go around and pretend to be an octopus. But it's not an octopus. It doesn't have thoughts like an octopus. It doesn't have feelings like an octopus. It's not an animal like an octopus. It is a mechanical entity that we have fashioned to do our bidding. It's not an actual living organism with free will and choice, okay? Like God wanted to create. Ergo, the reason why I couldn't just create more angels and be satisfied. God had bigger ambitions than just more servants. He wanted friends, allies that choose to serve him because they thought it was the right thing to do and because they loved what God is about. Okay? Truth, honesty, compassion, charity. These are all qualities that are associated with God and not animals. Animals do not naturally have this in them. God has this naturally in him. Okay? So, and one more thing. All right. So basically, yeah. So I just want to say, all right. One of the big reasons why God used evolution theory is because also He wanted humans to have domain over the earth. Okay, remember Genesis says God gave domain over everything on the planet, all animals, plants, everything, for man to use as he sees fit. The earth has been given to us as our permanent home, as our permanent playground. Okay? God did that to us because He wanted us to have a place that was ours, and we would always have a home where we felt we could go to and be safe. Okay? But to live on earth, you have to be in sync with earth. You have to be relatable to everything on earth. And the best way to do this is through a slow evolutionary process. That way, the product that you create through evolution will always be a product of your environment and hence perfectly in sync with it, even though it's not completely natural to that. And it's something that you created. But because you did it through an evolutionary process using the earth and its very environment as factors to derive and push your evolution, then now the end product, humanity, is perfectly suited for its home, Earth. Now, this takes a lot longer. God could probably create a legion of angels very quickly if He wanted to. But to create a perfectly balanced and in sync life form on the planet Earth that has qualities of the animals and quality of God is not an easy thing that can be done in a day. Okay? He has to do it the slow, hard way. And like I said, the good way is it's really hard to mess up this way. And when things do start getting messed up, you have time to correct it. And allegedly, one of the things that has happened is that God has had to correct our DNA numerous times um, and root out evolutionary dead ends that weren't making the cut, like the Neanderthals and other cavemen, Dinosaurians, this sort of a thing. Okay, he didn't like the way things were going, and God has one superpower that is unmatched as far as I can tell, and I can tell you right now, I am the one, baby. I am the only human to ever live who knows what gravity is, who can perfectly calculate all gravity, dark matter, dark energy with all observations perfectly. I'm the guy. And I know exactly how matter is created, what it is, how it's destroyed, what antimatter, all of this. I've explained all of this in my videos. I figured this out years ago. Okay? But there's one thing that I cannot explain, and that is how God can see into the future to make his best laid plans so that they are unstoppable. But he has this power. Trust me, he has this power. I've seen evidence of this. I have no clue how he does it. It is completely impossible according to all the physics that I have hand waved into existence on this channel over the last few years. But this is the way it is. Clearly, my physics is not at rock bottom yet, and I have more to learn. Unfortunately, I've gotten to a point where I've exhausted as far as I can go on that rabbit hole without some help. But it is what it is. Things will be as they will be. So, another thing to keep in mind too, right? There's a story in the Bible where, humans got arrogant and they tried to make the Tower of Babel, right? And God got upset, and so he dispersed them all over the earth and gave them different tongues so they couldn't speak the same language. So they had different languages. So it was harder for them to get together and collaborate to do things or that, because God didn't want that yet. It wasn't part of his plan. It wasn't going the direction he wanted it to go, this project of humanity, okay, trying to make the perfect demigod, okay? Now, this is an overlooked fact, but I want you to think about this, okay? Humanity is all over the planet, okay? All of it. You got Australia down here. You can't really see it too well, but here it is. But they say, they don't know. They think, because there's no other way to explain it, that somehow during an ice, region, water got sucked up and turned into ice somehow, and then that exposed like the barren land straits and allowed humanity to naturally progress over here and all the way down here to South America, and and humanity just naturally came up here, and even Madagascar, somehow they crossed this barrier, like what, 40, 50,000 years ago. We know Australia, somehow Australia, way down here. I mean, you could argue there's a little bit of could have been a land bridge right here until you realize that's actually like 200 miles long, and the amount of water that would have to recede it to make that viable, and it's like, I don't know, like 100 feet deep. So you do the math, like 100 feet deep of sea level, man, and something that's like 200 miles. Good luck, man, on the amount of water you would have to recede for humans to. And if they could get here, what about all the rest of this, man? This is all water in between here. This is all just sparse islands. Okay, this was not no landmass that went all the way down here for them to follow. I know that's the current theory evolutionists have because they have no other way to explain how humanity got scattered all around the entire planet. Literally everywhere. Every continent has had humans on it for tens of thousands of years before we had boats, except for Antarctica and like Greenland, right? That's it, man. And maybe Iceland too, because they're probably very cold. Humans probably couldn't live there, 40,000 years ago without advanced technology, like jackets to keep you warm, ability to build fires on demand, even when it's wet and whatever, stuff to beat the cold. Because cold will kill you, man. Once that temperature drops below 0 degrees, if you don't have some way to keep warm, you're going to die. It's only a matter of time. Facts. I hate to break it to you, but cavemen 50,000 years ago wearing, leopard skin leotards just could only stay so warm, man. Not without help from God teaching them what they needed to know to beat the cold and allow them to go up wherever he pushed them all around. He did this. He scattered humans over every continent. Okay, and you have to admit that's a very peculiar. I remember when I first heard about that, I'm like, really? Humans, every continent, tens of thousands of years ago, even Australia, way down here, all of it. Once again, the Bible explains that God did this because what humanity was doing was not working well with his plan. So he had to change the plan and disperse humanity to get things going the direction he wanted to go. So that's pretty much where we're at right now, okay? I just wanted you to have a better understanding of this, okay? I know I'm doing a horrible job right now today. I'm already lit. I've already been drinking all day today. I'm just lit. But I do believe this was a vision from God, elaborating on why and how he did what he did, which is crucial if you want to have a better understanding of what God's about and what he's trying to do with us. Okay? Those are two very important questions that you need to have if you're a human being, because you have a lot riding on this. You don't even know, man. I mean, think about it. If you do well and serve God in a way that he is happy with and he wants you on his team, he will take you and reincarnate you in an angel body. And you will have, essentially, you won't be a demigod anymore. You'll be more God than anything, to be honest. I mean, you have officially evolved or graduated from demigod, where you're being tested on how well you can do right things, to just straight up being God level status, where you're part of the Elohim, and now you're just doing whatever you can, running around performing this program of religion all around the world to all the people to, get God's plan going the way that he wants it to. This is a lot riding, man. You may not know, but you have more riding on this than you've ever had on anything ever in your whole life. For your human life is like, what, 100 years at best? But your life with God, I mean, for all we know, that could be eternal. It could go on and on and on forever. We just don't know the limitations yet of God's power. Everything has limits, but I know this. God's definitely got the least of them as compared to anything else in this galaxy. And that's really a remarkable thing if you think about it. But anyways, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit and explain this because I don't think it's a huge knowledge bomb, but I will say this. It was important enough, I believe, that it was a vision. So I feel it's important enough to understand it and to try and get to the bottom of it because there's a reason. And with that, I bid you adieu. Adios, muchachos. Until the next time.
Like, subscribe, submit.